Starting with the brushes, we have the pen, the sketch, and well, the brush tool. They'll do the same exact thing really, but I don't think I've met anyone that has actually used anything but the brush tool, so FF and S. Next is the eraser, the anti-brush tool, except the brush tool already does that with the transparent mode you can toggle next to the color wheel here. Aside from just straight up doing what the eraser does, it also keeps your brush properties, so if you have a texture brush, it is now a texture eraser. So there's really no reason to be using this thing, considering toggle transparency is able to be keybind. You can just straight up replace the eraser with this function. Also F tier. The airbrush. I don't really get why this is its own thing when you can literally just download a custom airbrush from the asset store and it'll sit neatly with all your other brush. Like, what's the point of this thing being in its own menu? Redundant. F tier. A decoration tool. I've only ever used this thing for the sparkle effect because it does actually work pretty well in a pinch, but personally if I need like pasteable patterns or like a cool effect, I'll just either rip one from Google or draw it out myself. In most cases you get more control and the final result usually looks better, so it's not that useful, but it has its niche and it does something, and I have used it before, so C tier. The blend tool. It's the same with the airbrush, as again you can just get a soft brush or a custom one if you need to blend something. There's really no reason to be using this thing unless you're like super new and don't know Clip-Style Paint at all. F tier. Liquidfy allows you to morph and warp an element. It's extremely handy for fixing minor errors or for creating cool funky distortion effect like the clock I did for this thumbnail here. A tier, it's useful and it's fun to use. The selection tools. Lasso, rectangle, circle, point line. And the selection brush that I never use because I hate the controls of it. This one is an automatic F tier for me. But Lasso gets an A because it's the most versatile of the bunch. No restraint, go nuts. Rectangle is great for quickly putting down outlines or making a clean, perfectly aligned cut. If you hold shift, it'll also create a perfect square, so that's also pretty neato. Circle is the same thing as rectangle, except it's a bit more helpful, as everyone knows drawing a good circle is virtually impossible. You can also hold shift for a perfect circle, E for both. Polyline is essentially the in-between. It's not as flexible as Lasso, but it's a big step up from the static shapes of the rectangle and circle. A tier, it's not as good as Lasso though. Oh, if you press B, you can create an outline from your selection. It's a pretty handy tool that I use all the time. Also A tier. The auto selection tools automatically select areas that share the same color. It's very handy, albeit it's a little bit scuffy if you have a texture brush, as you won't be able to get a clean fill with all these jagged edges. You can somewhat get around this by just increasing the selection size in the setting, but it's still not the best, though this thing is useful enough to warrant a high B tier for me. Probably A if you use like a normal hardened brush, because it'll do its job properly there. Luckily for us texture brush user, however, there exists a secret selection tool you can access by holding Control and clicking on a layer. This will create a selection for every single element in that specific layer, and it is by far the best way to get a nice selection if using a texture brush. It also has the added utility of showing you where everything is, which is a pretty nice quality of life feature, as sometimes it can be hard to tell. Overall, it's my preferred selection tool I use thing all the time, and so this one is an easy S for me. The fill tool, or as everyone likes to call it, the paint bucket, for obvious reason, is useless because it sucks at its one and only job. I mean, look at this, it can't even cleanly fill in an area. It's also completely outclassed by the actual fill tool that you can enable pressing Alt Backspace. This thing actually fills cleanly, and it doesn't force you out of your current active tool like the paint bucket. F plus here, functionally pointless. And S plus for the actual fill tool, I have it keybind to my stylus, it is that goddamn good. Unlike the airbrush, the gradient tool actually has a real niche, as trying to create a big gradient with a normal soft brush will result in Clip-Style Paint instantly grinding to a halt. So this one actually lets you cover the entire canvas with a nice soft transition of hues without fracturing the very structure of existence. B tier, because overall I don't find myself needing a canvas-sized gradient that often. The operation tool does a lot of different things, but I only mainly use the first three: object, select, and move layers. Operation object lets you edit elements like the ruler tools and probably more, but that's all I know at the current moment. It's just nice being able to easily rearrange and align your perspective rulers, okay? That's what it needs to. B tier. Operation select move you to the layers of whatever element in the canvas you clicked on, and it is the sole reason why I'm able to get away with never naming or organizing any of my layers. S plus tier, critically vital. Operation move does the exact same thing, except it also lets you, move whatever you clicked on. First off, I really don't like this thing because I hate accidentally nudging myself when I just want to go to the layer it's on. And secondly, it's also kind of outclassed by the transform function that not only lets you move but also scale and rotate and perspective warp it as well. So like Operation Select and Transform does what Operation Move do, except like way better and less intrusively. So F tier, I don't use this thing at all. The figure tool lets you quickly create accurate, clean, geometric shapes and curves, and while I'm sure there are definitely practical applications for this, when it comes to just visual arts, the rules of if it looks good enough, it's good enough still kind of reign supreme. It's not that these are useless, it's more so I think you can just freehand them, and in most cases they'll probably look just fine because, you know, I assume you're using Clip Paint for art and not for like graphic design. Also, half of these are just redundant as you can get the same result but like easier by pressing B with the selection tool, so B's here. The text tool lets you write stuff. Not much to say here. If you need it, it's there, it works. B tier because I've been getting a lot of mileage out of this thing. The comic tool lets you create text bubble for, well, comics, duh, and also other cool related effects. Now, I'm not a comic artist, so it's kind of an F tier for me, but I'm pretty confident this thing is like vitally important for anyone who is, so A tier for them, or even S, honestly. The ruler tool does exactly what you assume it does. There are a lot of them, and frankly, most of them kinda sucks. The only ones I bother with are the guide, symmetrical, and perspective. Guide creates a perfectly vertical or horizontal line. I've used it for exactly one thing, and that is to plop down a horizon line. Easier, because on average I use it like once per drawing. Perspective lets you create a perspective grid, which is pretty neato, except there's already a built-in perspective grid feature here that does what the ruler does, but like better. So F tier, just use this one instead. The symmetrical ruler lets you create a mirror dimension where, you know, whatever you draw on one side will be reflected in the other. It's pretty neat. Personally, I prefer the good old flip horizontal trick, but the ruler works, so I'll give it a honorary B tier. The correct line tool is only applicable to vectors layer, which I have never used before in my entire life, but the ability to just live edit your line art sounds amazing, so for those who does use it, it's probably like a high A tier for them. But unfortunately I don't, so F tier, El Bozo. The move tool lets you move, duh, and pan the canvas around, and these ones just does what it says in the box. All S tier, because no sane person would be using the software without them. And lastly, the Eyedropper tool. Lets you pick the hue of any element on the canvas. You can even toggle it to only select the hue that's on the current layer, which makes keeping a color consistent so easy when rendering. And obvious S tier, everyone who color loves this thing. And that's it. Next time we'll be doing the dials and buttons for the layers menu. If you disagree with any of these, then unfortunately, this is my tier list, so you just have to deal with that. Now get out!